3 quick fire questions just to kind of set the tone and establish the storylines for the week ahead. Gents, who's it a big weekend for? One individual who potentially has some questions to answer, some stakes on the line, big fixture coming up. Jacob, who's it a big weekend for?
Oof. Now I'm going to leave the obvious one because I know that's one that you really want to tackle, Lachie. But I'm going to go with, we kind of touched on it, well, at least Christian kind of touched on it just before, but Harry Sawyer. I think that, yeah, that is still a big question mark for MacArthur, is kind of who is going to be the goal scorer for them this season. And of course, obviously they were able to kind of ride along the ride of Marin Jakalic last season, who had a tremendous season and a great output with over 20 goals and assists. But, you know, there's kind of that question mark of who's going to be the guy who's going to stand up in the final third for them this season. It's clear they've got a very good squad defensively. They've got Philip Curto still between the sticks, and they've got a very good midfield. But it's that final third where they need somebody to kind of take ownership of it and really be, you know, the difference maker. And, you know, potentially Harry Sawyer could be that player. We saw how good he was for South Melbourne, obviously in the NPL Victoria and in that cup run that they had, or was it 2 seasons ago now. He gets his well-earned move to the A-League, and kind of last season doesn't necessarily get the chance to really kind of embed himself into that team. But I think that this could be a good opportunity against Adelaide, who have a defence who, okay, you know, looked solid against Sydney, but this was a Sydney team that didn't really test them at all that much. And I feel like this could be a good opportunity for him to come up against a defence that last season, at least, and this is a completely unchanged back four as well for Adelaide, by the way, that conceded over 2 goals a game, right? So it's like, this is a massive opportunity for him to really take that next step and go, I am an A-League striker. And I can do this, and I can score goals, and I can be the guy who can carry this team in attack. So, yeah, I think it could be a really big weekend for him.
I like it. Christian?
I'm going to think outside the box. So I'm not going to go for a player who is struggling or has some question marks. I'm going to go the complete opposite way. Someone who has performed really well over the past, couple of weeks now, couple of games. I'm going with Max Caputo. Big weekend for him at home against Perth Glory, because, you know, scoring that winner against Biriam and then scoring again against the Wanderers last week. He's in some really good form early, and I think if he can continue this, sooner or later he'll be in contention for the Socceroos. I rate this kid really highly. Like, he's only 20. I just think he's got so much potential, and if he can prove that he can be, you know, a reliable source in terms of goals for Vidmar, then it's going to really pave the way in a good sense for him for the rest of the season. So I think these early games, just to really continue to grow and flourish in that number 9 role, because it's sort of his to lose now, right? And if he can keep these performances up, and against Perth at home, another massive opportunity to maybe pinch a goal or 2 again as well. So that's why I've gone for Caputo.
Well, my answer is kind of the antithesis of yours, Christian. I think it's a big weekend for Brian Kaltak. I think the team that Perth Glory have assembled is obviously very solid, and we've talked about that, but particularly the defence looks really good. But Brian Kaltak was the weak link in that defence in the first week against Wellington Phoenix. For me, it was his defensive positioning that allowed Eze to get in behind the way he did and score that goal. So I think there's a lot on him. He is a very credentialed defender in the A-League, but he had a poor 24-25 season, and he hasn't started so hot here. I know it's only 1 game, but this is what we're talking about here. So I think it is a big weekend for Brian Kaltak against the Melbourne City side, who, as we've talked about, they actually haven't had the best time at converting all their possession and build up dominance into goals with the weakness of those wide players. So yes, Caputo's in a lot of form, but can they get the ball to him in good areas? So it's probably going to be a very interesting one-on-one battle between Caputo and Kaltak now that we've brought it up, and it's going to be one fun one to follow for sure. The next question, Christian, I'll go back to you. In a dream world, what do you want to see out of this round in the A-League?
Has to be no other answer but the Mariners going 2 for 2. Imagine that. Kicking that season off with 2 straight wins. That'd just be the funniest thing, I reckon. Because, obviously coming off that massive high in the F3 derby, somehow, some way they won that game. Just still unbelievable, right? Just hasn't even sunk in yet the way they did that. And now to be, I think, at home again to Sydney, if they win that game as well, the pressure obviously on the Sky Blues is massive. I'm sure one of you two will touch on that on soon with one of these questions. But the Mariners, if they can get 6 points out of 6, that'd be massive for them, wouldn't it? In terms of not just confidence, but just to give them a sense of life, a sense of belief for the fans, because coming in, like if I was a Mariners supporter, I'd seriously have just no hope at all. Just sort of, pack it away and just say, look, the season's done already, because like what hope is there? Had the most successful manager, arguably Mark Jackson, leaving, he sort of sensed that there was no real opportunity to grow and to develop his managerial career, and the signings in the offseason just weren't up to scratch. But if they can beat Sydney, that is just, for me, going to be a big, big statement. Again, still early days, but that'd be an absolute dream scenario for them.
My inner dream world is that Auckland FC remind us why we love them playing over at Mount Smart. They've sold out the port, and the active section is going to be completely full. And as much as their football is kind of what remains in a lot of people's memories from last season, we shouldn't forget how awesome the matchday atmosphere looks. Haven't had the pleasure of being there yet. I hope to someday. But the vibe out at Auckland looks incredible. And they have all the activations. They had the slide on the hill. They had the beach for a little while.
They had a petting zoo, didn't they, as well at one point?
Yeah, a petting zoo. They had all these cool activations and just generally very good support from the local Auckland community. So I hope we see the best of them again in their game. Who are they hosting?
Wanderers.
The Wanderers, that's it. And it's going to be a great game as well. Two really good teams going up against each other. So that's my dream scenario. Jacob?
Mine is that the Phoenix improved offensively. I think that it's kind of brave and bold to just be like, we're going to completely 180 the way that we're playing and change everything about our strategy, our focus, our philosophy playing football, and we're going to try and hold possession and have a really high line. And I feel like I want to see rewards for that kind of thing, because I've been critical, of course, in the past of coaches refusing to change the way that they play football when it doesn't work. And, Chiefy's willing to take that risk. And that was, I suppose, the one big criticism of them, right, against Perth, was that they did concede those 2 goals kind of in classic fashion when you're playing with a high line, leaving a lot of space in behind. So I feel like, seeing them kind of tidy that up, maybe Aleaguemen becomes a little bit more dominant in and around the box and becomes that leader at the back. That would be huge for them. And it would be really awesome to see. So yeah, in a dream scenario, the Phoenix can kind of tidy up defensively a little bit, and kind of show to the rest of the league that, hey, you don't have to just stick with one way of playing for the rest of your existence. You can change things up and still find success.
All right. The third question is a repeat from last year, but we brought it back because I think it provides some interesting conversation. The worst case scenario. And for me, I think this is kind of the biggest one of the lot. I think everyone's been thinking it this week. The worst case scenario is that Sydney FC lose to the Mariners. Yeah. Exactly what Christian said in his dream scenario. For the Mariners, absolutely. For Ufuk Talay and the Sydney FC, the worst case scenario is they lose to the Mariners and Talay gets sacked. We saw it happen after 3 games in Steve Corica in 23-24. I think Sydney have the Jets after this next week as well. So if you're looking at like expectations, I don't think it's wild for a lot of people to suggest that the Jets go in at least very close, if not favourites in that game, especially if Sydney were to drop points here. So they should absolutely be winning this game against the Mariners. And if they don't, I think the worst case scenario is that Ufuk Talay loses his job. There you go. Jacob.
Mine is actually about the Jets. Worst case scenario for them is that they're not able to bounce back from that defeat to the Mariners in round 1. Of course, the great highs of winning the Cup and their first trophy for however many years, and then losing to their rivals in devastating fashion in round 1, and that completely killing their morale and them not being able to bounce back against tough opposition in the victory in round 2. That would be horrible to see for them, because I feel like of all the recent Australia Cup winners that we've had, where we've been like, oh, this means they're going to have a great season ahead, I kind of buy into it the most with this Jets team. So I think seeing them kind of fail to get off to a good start, or at least fail to get off to an okay start in the league, would be really disappointing. So yeah, in a worst case scenario, they would just lose in awful fashion to the victory and really just not look themselves. So yeah.
Christian, wrap it up for us.
What if I told you Jacob stole mine? I had the Jets as well.
Oh no.
I thought one on the go whilst Jacob was talking. I'll give you another one. So I've got MacArthur to lose. So if they lose back-to-back games, obviously my hopes of MacArthur winning the league go absolutely out the window. I reckon, in my opinion. But obviously coming back from Asia, that short span of travel, we've said that, well, I've said anyway, that I don't think it would impact them too much. But if you lose to Adelaide and Brisbane in the first 2 rounds, and potentially you have to question whether it does impact them, at least in some sense, right? Because I do think they have a really talented squad. They've got a lot of valuable pieces there. It's just, I've said time and time again, season after season, that for Macarthur, their biggest problem has been trying to put that all together, right? What's their best formation? What's their identity, their way of playing, right? I think Stejovski has sort of found it, but then obviously in January, some of his key players left, and he sort of had to start from scratch all over again. So, yeah, it's going to be sort of a bit dependent on this outcome in Asia midweek after this recording releases. But yeah, if they lose to Adelaide, and then on the flip side, going into the best case scenario, Adelaide 2 from 2, that'd be sort of on the same page as the Mariners, sort of a dream scenario. So yeah, Macarthur at home, they have to win that game.
If you enjoyed this video, then I think you'll also enjoy this series, the Ramble Australia Predictions Game, exclusive for our YouTube channel members. Every week we go down the line of all 6 A-League men's fixtures and give our personal and sometimes outside of the box predictions as to what we think might happen in the upcoming weekend. So if you are a fan of what we do and our content, then please consider subscribing to a membership and you get that exclusive series as well.